Go, sir. You're on.
It being 6:30 on February 28th, 2024, the Village of Homer Planning Board is in session. On our agenda, we have old business that deals with the Family Health Network. We have an engineer's report that we asked for. We have it in front of us. And is somebody here going to report on it? All the results of it, or go for it. Start us off.
Okay, Rod Ives, Macro Consulting. We are the civil engineers for Family Health Network on this project. And yeah, we did receive a letter this morning from Tim Buell. I don't know if you want me to go
I think so.
point by point through some of this. Under the site plan comments, just to summarize, the first paragraph talks about access and whatnot for different vehicles. The site is not designed for tractor trailers. Family Health Network has said they're not going to be getting tractor trailers coming through, so it is designed. I can actually backtrack. May 10th. Wasn't sure what it was. So I just skipped to the second and third pages of this. So we did design a site for emergency vehicles. It's a 40-foot long plus or minus, it's like 38-foot long fire truck. We're talking to the fire department. That's where they will have access using the you'll see in the southeast corner a turnaround, so it's a K-turn to pull in and then K-turn and move out. And the fire department has seen that and they find that acceptable. And then on the next page is for a AASHTO design vehicle. It's called an SU-40, and that's just simply a box truck. A little bit bigger than a UPS truck. You see some of the trucks, not quite that big. So in between a UPS truck and something like a van lines moving truck. Same turning movement. They come in, the deliveries would be to the south on that southerly door. So that's why we have the truck turning in, unload the deliveries, and then again, using that area to the southeast to back up and proceed out of the project site. So that's kind of how we designed the site. We, again, didn't plan on a tractor trailer coming through. So that was kind of the crux of that first paragraph in Tim Buell's letter.
Before you move off of that.
Sure.
Maybe the folks have questions, but the truck comes right up against the curb on the eastern edge there. Can that pad be made a little wider there so he has?
Well, I can go through the turning movements again. I mean, this is me as an engineer sitting in my office using a turning software program. I'm not a professional driver. I'm not, the AASHTO, the movements are conservative, but I can certainly redo the simulation to show that the truck isn't right up against there. I wouldn't, again, having gotten the letter this morning and trying to get some responses and get some graphics together, it was kind of in haste trying to put it together. But if I,
It does look like it'd be a little close.
yeah, I can certainly take a step back, do it again, and show that it works for me.
Well, it sounds like in concept it's gonna work, and what your plan looks like it's gonna work. that just stuck out at me.
Just my 2 cents. I think it'll work, Rod, as long as there's no tractor trailers, so that should be fine, so.
Yeah,
Right.
In this paragraph, it does state buses though, and this was not line, so is that?
so my, in conversations with Portland Mass Transit or whatever they, public transportation, their buses aren't like a big central bus. It's more of a equated to a,
Almost like a UPS.
yeah,
Yeah.
or they're a little shorter, the,
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah, a little bit longer than school. It's the charter, not the charter, but the buses you see like airports that take you
Yeah.
out to the back 40 for the rental cars. You know, so I don't want to say a limo bus, but so in between an SU-40, the Ashland SU-40 and the emergency vehicle. So that movement's gonna work too. That's not a set design vehicle under AASHTO standards, so it's not something I can pull off of the public of the library that we have access to. But it would be the same movement where they would come in and have to pay the turn using that turnaround. For public transportation. Any questions on that? If I can just digress or take it tangential, just the first page, I know last meeting we talked about the photometrics. Providing a lighting plan, so that's what this, the first page is. To show the photometrics and that we are zeros at our property lines. Providing the minimums for ISC standards for parking lots. I have them put together. I just wanted to put that in there real quick for everybody to review. I don't know if you want to take the line now or. Photometrics are always kind of one of those. You look at the property lines to see that we're at zeros, and other than that, it's just a lot of numbers.
So where there's the blue words, letters, LA, those are the.
Those are the light fixtures, yep. And the ones, they're all pole mounted lights. So. Except for under, sorry, I shouldn't. have said that. Okay. Any questions on that?
And from my perspective, I thought the photometrics were fine, so.
Just a question, so there's no lighting on the north end of the building or on the west side?
Correct. There might be security lighting.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, I know we had mentioned security lighting, you know, because there is that sidewalk back there on the west side,
Yep.
going from the parking lot, so there,
Yep.
there would be some, you know, the emergency.
Motion sensor type?
Yeah.
Security light?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, in Tim's second letter, kind of talks about concerns with the retaining wall. I'll hit on that real quick, or well, so he mentions the grades, they're approaching 50%. So that's a 2-on-1 grade. I double checked our design file and we have 3-on-1 grades above that, the top wall.
Right, it looked to me like you had like a 1-on-1 above the top wall, like a 45.
Yeah, I mean, they scale, when I snap a line between two contours, it comes up at 3 feet.
Yeah, I did the whole distance of it, so that's where I came up with my numbers. And that's the steepest part of the site.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do have, I'm not, you know, down around the outlet structure of the detention.
Yep.
And
Yep.
farm credit, that gets steep and we're showing that to be riprap. And the reason it gets steep is because we've got the structure, the outlet structure that we're trying to grade around, so that.
Yep.
That's what brings kind of the contours together, but for the most part, we're showing 3-on-1 slopes, and they will be stabilized using the stabilization matting to help secure the soil and get the seat in there until it does become established.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, but not all of the 3-on-1s were stabilized. It looked like on the drawing I just got this morning. I think there was one down to on the south side, and you didn't get the one above the top retaining wall either. That's over 30%. So
Yeah, we can, we'll,
you should go through that, maybe stabilize those as well.
yeah, we'll, so that one there, and then,
I think there's one down in the
Yep.
south corner there. Yep.
so we'll make sure we get, all of the 3-on-1 slopes. DEC requires anything steeper than 4-on-1, have those anchored stabilization matting.
Yep.
So that's 3-on-1 slopes, so, I'll make sure we get the rest of the areas that are 3-on-1, well, 4-on-1 or greater. Stabilized with the,
Can you clarify that 50%? I thought Tim mentioned that it says 50 and you're saying you calculate differently.
yeah, I, and just because it was painstaking task, especially with the retaining walls. This area here, you know, it's shows up 3-on-1 up in here. This is a 4-on-1 slope. But then up in here, yeah, we'll check it again, just to verify, but at this point, you know, I'm pretty sure it's 3-on-1. You know,
Yeah, you've got in your sections, Rob, you've got 3-on-1 between the walls, and up on top it's steeper than that. So the contours are closer together up above the wall.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure we go back through.
Yeah, just check them. Yep, that's good.
He mentioned, Tim mentions the retaining wall design. So the way we approach this, and this was kind of a team decision. I didn't want to get involved with the retaining wall, I wanted a structural engineer to be involved with that. But in order to provide Family Health with the most competitive pricing, we're putting the onus on the contractors to provide a retaining wall design by a licensed professional engineer as part of the submittal package. That way, we're not dictating a material that contractor A can probably get something cheaper. You know, or has a better idea, has got more of a familiarity with a certain product versus contractor B who might have something better or something else that he wants to use. And so we provided the basis of design from a site perspective. That basis of design is shown on the plans and profiles of the various walls to show the lengths, the grades at the top and bottoms of the wall. But ultimately, the final design of each retaining wall is going to be by a licensed structural engineer in New York, that the contractor is using for that specific wall manufacturer that he's using. Whether it's Versalock, Keystone, Ready Rock. I mean, we talked last time about what we presented to Family Health was the Ready Rock system. But that's not to say with the different contractors, they may prefer to use, one may prefer to use Versalock, one may prefer Keystone. So it's for us to provide 6 different designs for each manufacturer. So the specific wall design, which will take into account everything that Tim mentions as far as the stability, I think he mentions the, I'm gonna call it turnover, you know, the pushover. I'm sorry, again, not structural. So,
Who approves the drawings oversees that whole thing that the contractor does?
so the structural engineer on the design side is the one that'll be receiving those submittals and reviewing those, because they're the ones with the expertise on wall design.
Who's on the design?
Yeah, but I think,
On the project,
You
yeah, it won't be me, because I'm just, you know.
Yeah.
but I think the code officer should say that you have to make submissions on those things before, and we can take a look at them before they're finally approved to be installed. I don't want to do it after they start and all of a sudden we find problems with it or something. So that's a critical part of the job because of the steepness of the slope and the massive cuts and fills they have there. You've got 18, 19-foot cuts. That's a lot of earth. Did you take soil borings up there, Rob?
Yes, so, yeah, that was one of the things, you know, we will get you the geotech report
That'd be good. Okay.
for you to review.
what's your suggestion of how the planning board would make that as a stipulation, that this whole process?
You could just say something to the effect that the detailed, sealed drawings from a structural or a geotechnical engineer will be provided prior to any construction in that area in terms of the retaining walls themselves for approval by the code officer and the village engineer.
You send that to us?
Sure.
Tim, in addition to that, I think the folks on the planning board would like to be able to have an idea of what this is gonna look like as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable approving a blank poured concrete wall if the village is looking for something with a little more design to it.
Well, I know, I mean, our basis of design was a segmental block.
Yep.
Using the Ready Rock. So again, go over the Ready Rock. It's a larger panel, but it looks like individual 8x18 blocks in it, kind of at various sizes. So that it just breaks it up. So we won't end up with that flat poured concrete.
Right, right.
Block.
But again, I guess my point is to make that part of my review of the design. I want to be able to show these guys, what the ultimate look is of this retaining wall. And then we'll have obviously Tim helping me in the background.
You're looking not only for the design, what Tim is bringing, you're talking about the aesthetics.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're looking at the design and the aesthetic.
Yep.
When I've done other projects that have had extensive retaining walls like this, yeah, the submittals have everything that you want in them, short of the actual bringing in the block and plopping it down on the table, but it'll show the, colored picture. Because part of it too is Family Health will have to select colors, what retaining walls come in all sorts of colors. So there's lots of different components to the retaining system that require some input from Family Health during that submittal process. So you'll get a full package.
Yep.
That'll detail everything on, even like the pinning of it and how it's gonna be reinforced, the geofabric reinforcement behind it, like that, so.
Okay.
Tim also mentioned erosion sediment control plan or needing special protection and treatment of areas for erosion sediment control. Such plans do have an erosion sediment control plan. I know the initial submittal from early December did not. That was like a 50%, and then the latest set does have the erosion sediment control plan. So Tim can review that and give us some input feedback on that. We have things like I mentioned the erosion, the stabilized matting. We do have check dams. We've got stabilized construction entrance. The retaining walls are actually part of the erosion sediment control plan, because if we didn't put the retaining walls in, we'd have excessively steep slopes that would just, be in a, so the state doesn't include retaining walls as part of the erosion sediment control device.
Before you move ahead, actually, I wasn't following yours last comment, and I'm sorry. I hope it's not anything to do with this, but in item 2 of Tim's report, I don't understand that, what he's referring to there. In more general terms, the applicant should also comply with recommendations 1 through 16 of the county planning staff as outlined in their GML site plan review. I know what they're referring to. We saw that in previous steps. Those things that they were concerned about. Yeah. Are we gonna review those again, or what are you thinking there, Tim?
Yeah, I think we should basically take a look at those.
We, where are they?
I don't know if we need to, go through them.
Now.
Now?
Yeah. Right.
We have the county's referral with those comments. My plan would be to provide Tim a response to his comments. And I can also include in there how we've addressed
Those things.
the county comments as well.
Yeah, I think probably would be a good
Yeah.
idea. Timmy, it's Fran.
Yep.
Probably, if I remember what, the county came back with mid-January, I think January 11th with about 16 comments. Maybe if we could just make sure all those 16 comments are addressed by you and Rod, and just make sure we're all on the same page with those, get a little bit more information on the retaining walls. And then I think the board, the seeker, will be relatively easy. Get all that information, and I think we should be ready to go. Don't you? Tim?
Yeah, I never got a copy of the actual EAF for secret, so
I'll
It
get you
would-
a copy of the EAF. We'll get you a copy of the EAF. And I'm just wondering, you know, this is me, just to the board. Would it be better to maybe just hold a special meeting to get this finalized and done in the next couple of weeks? I don't know, Tim, are you available in the next couple of weeks?
yeah, no. I come back
I don't know
up
how
from
the board
Florida on the 6th, so I'll be back up for a couple of weeks. So.
I just figure if we got all that information, we could get it to the board sooner than tonight, you know, get you all that information, then you come and you have everything before you, addressing all those 16 concerns, plus the information that was brought out tonight. I think it would make for, you know, a better, easier decision-making meeting. That's just me, but that's the board's decision.
I think that's the direction we probably want to go, but maybe you have more to talk about on this today?
What about this, like, the dot has to still make it a commercial driveway permit and all the traffic, all of that stuff?
So to touch on, so as far as the highway work permit, we're not doing any work as far as the driveway goes. And so my understanding is that we would not need a highway work permit for non-utility work. That's related to the driveway.
Okay.
We do need a work permit for utility work. That's for the water and sewer connections. But the way DOT works is those are issued to the contractor.
Okay,
That is because of liability, insurance, bonding, things that the Family Health Network and every owner we've worked with, they don't have. So to get that work permit at this stage, when we don't have a contractor, you know, the project hasn't been awarded, we can't do that. I can't apply for that until there's a site contractor selected.
and the
But
traffic,
doesn't DOT also require, if you're changing the level of service of a driveway, that they want to look at not only what you've done with your traffic study, but also the drainage and everything else? They're going to want to see this, I think, even though
Well,
you're not making actual.
To me, that's two different things. For them to review the traffic report doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna issue a work permit. I mean, they may,
No, it wasn't applying that, so.
um,
But they're gonna wanna see what's going on back there. And also, they are always concerned about stormwater runoff, and they're gonna wanna see your SWIP and your details on that too. DOT will. Because you're draining into their facilities.
Jeff Deep, who's the regional permit coordinator. I'll touch base with him, make sure he gets everything, and we get that review.
Okay, good.
On the last page, there's a recommendation. It is felt that a second look at the modeling is warranted, which included a full drainage area feeding into the site. This deals with gravelly outwash valley of the homeless Portland aquifer. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, so we did infiltration testing when we did the geotech report, and the soils aren't, the surface soils are not, we didn't get an infiltration rate at the surface. The infiltration rate is deep. So what we're doing is the stormwater management practices, and this comes back to when we did the administration building, the Soil Water Conservation District wanted a filtering practice above, rather than just going straight infiltration. And the difference being because to protect the aquifer. So
Yeah.
to provide that filtering practice for this project, we're doing that bioretention filter, which are these here. It's gonna act as one, but it's separated by the steps. So that has a 2.5 foot depth of a soil media, and that's our, the filtering media, so that's gonna collect, I don't wanna say nasties, collect the pollutants, the phosphorus, the nitrogen, other things that are found in runoff, before it enters down into the subsoils. And what we're doing is we're gonna install stone dry wells. I'm using the term dry well just because that's pretty much what it is, underneath that filtering layer to get the runoff down into the sands where it'll infiltrate. Okay. In terms of our model, I did not take account of the infiltration, and that actually is a more conservative approach. You know, so the infiltration will handle the the more frequent but less intense rainfall events. The way the state wants us to look at it is anything up to 1 inch of rain over a 24-hour period. Okay, that's what they consider that, more frequent but less intense rainfall. Anything over that is the more intense but less frequent. We're not gonna, in our modeling, okay, we didn't account for infiltration. We're storing it in our detention basin and above the filter. And in our model, we're showing that it discharges into the riprap swale that runs along the north side of the administration building. So. Yeah, so there's this riprap swale that runs right here down to 281. Our modeling shows that we are meeting our peak flow requirements, being that in the proposed condition, after all the development and grading, we cannot exceed the peak rates of runoff from what they are right now, okay? And how we do that is, we're storing water and discharging it through outlet control structure, and through the bioretention filter, we just have a culvert. We were able to get the control to work through that. And we have to calculate what the required volume is, what that discharge rate is, blah, blah. And the modeling shows that we're meeting those requirements. We're not exceeding that existing condition peak flow. Any infiltration we get is just a bonus. Okay, it's gonna lower that peak water surface elevation during any design storm, because all of a sudden we're gonna start losing some water into the soils instead of just storing it and discharging it to the surface. So it's a more conservative approach as far as an engineering point of view goes. We're able to get it to work without the infiltration, so we didn't include it. It is part of the water quality management, but not part of the overall water quantity.
Tim, does that?
Yeah, that's a conservative assumption that, in fact, if you ignore the infiltration, that's going to help you if you get down into the outwash sand and gravels. But I still do have some concern up on the northwest corner there where the access road comes in. You've taken, and I think that's my comment 8. You have a cutoff swale that comes down and heads into an existing practice on another piece of property. And I don't know what the capacity of that is or what, but you're taking sheet flow and diverting it into a concentrated area. And I don't know anything about that or what it can handle or what you're putting into it. So if you could look at that again and maybe emphasize what's going on there, it would be helpful to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was probably one of my comments. We'll take a look at that. We did the design for this too, so I can
Okay, see, it's easy. Good.
pull off that information. I know how it was built and all that. So, yeah, we'll take a look at it. Tim, I did have a question. I mean, you questioned using, on the traffic that, under using the 10th edition of the ITE,
Yep.
your slight increase. Well, the current edition is the 11th edition. And that's
I know
what-
that, yeah, I couldn't get a copy of it, so. I was told that the actual generation rates didn't change from 10 to 11 for this use, but it may have, so I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, Gordon, you know,
He's good, I like him, so he knows
Yeah.
what he's doing, yeah.
And he also, as far as the capturing the existing traffic counts, he was out in January, just last month, before he did, you know, that was part of his traffic study. He went out and counted all the intersections in the area, along the corridor there. So the existing conditions are already factored into all his, trip generation counts. And then he throws from the 11th edition of the ITE, the proposed conditions. So I don't know if there's much more we need to address as far as revising the report based on the 10th edition versus the 11th edition.
Yeah, I don't think that, you know, they're close anyways, so it's not like a big difference, but my concern is just anecdotally. You go down there at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and that whole stretch from the exit ramp to the traffic light at 90 is just, it's tight. There's a lot of cars there. There's a lot of holdups. It's just, I know you've got the data to document this, but it just seems to me it's going to be tough getting in and out of there at the peak afternoon time.
And then if I might add to it, Rod, my concern in looking at the traffic studies, pinpointed the peak travel hours for work. But I didn't see where it addressed the school times, buses and traffic getting in and out. That can turn into a cluster around 2:30, 3 o'clock. Whether that is something worth revisiting. Because at that point, we've got buses leaving the driveway immediately across from Farm Credit as well as Center Street. Yeah, so,
Yeah, you get a lot of pickups from cars on Center Street, don't you, when they pick the kids up instead of buses?
and then, yeah, that whole traffic coming in and out of moms and pops dropping off.
Yeah,
kids,
yeah.
Pulling in and out, but, more importantly is the time of day, I guess, is what,
Now, I can go back to Gordon and see.
yeah.
And I would think that would be that way in the morning too, during the commute. I think that, I mean. the
Well,
buses are
that
coming
got
out.
captured, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, his
Okay.
morning rush hour kind of coincides with the
Okay.
school.
Yeah.
Tell you that the school routes traffic out, down. It's the, is it Center Street that's?
Yep.
So they'll route it toward Main Street and they tell people not to go out 281 because the traffic gets so backed up.
Okay,
So.
okay.
So what I propose as far as is one to. I gotta take a look at the calcs for this, get that to Tim, but with other, provide a response to this as well as the county comments. Get that to Tim and to you so that everybody can take a look, and then as the attorney mentioned, having a special meeting to.
Well, we can look at that. You guys agree that we should try to get a special meeting in so they can, the goal is that they move ahead with construction some.
Yeah.
Later.
Yes, yeah, there, I mean, our timeframe, you know, we still have a little bit of breathing room, but it's gonna close real quick. Yeah, on the other end of this is where they currently are, that lease expires, so we're trying to make sure that we've got this up and ready to go before that lease expires.
I guess before a motion, we should look at the calendar and see what works for most people. Right? Motion to have a meeting, a special meeting.
Hey, logistically, I'm looking at like a week to be able to get things wrapped up and then
I'll be talking 2 weeks then.
a minimum.
Yep.
you
Well,
know,
three.
yeah, because to be fair to Tim, give him a little bit of time to.
Well, we're talking
We
then.
don't need to be there.
Just
we-
2
Okay.
weeks.
What?
2 weeks.
March 13th.
March?
Wednesday.
That'll-
I saw it.
Yeah, works for me, and Don, I think you'll be back by the 13th.
Yes. Yes. Had to unmute myself.
That's two of us. Mike?
Yep.
I'm available.
Jessica? Paul?
I'll be back up by I come back the 6th and I'll be in New York till probably the 28th or the 29th, so that'll work for me.
So we'll plan on Wednesday.
Yeah, so I need a motion to that effect.
So move.
Second? All seconded. All those in favor?
I,
Okay, so be it,
Aye.
13th. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Rod.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Tim.
Yep, okay. Hi, Don. Haven't seen you in a while, so,
Yeah.
okay, take care, folks.
Thank you.
Okay, Tim.
Cheers,
Yep.
Tim.
Bye now.
Dan,
Thank you, Rod.
you oversee packaging this stuff for next time, so we're ready with those
Yeah,
16
all the
things.
stuff that Rod puts in, I imagine he'll answer those 16. We'll give Tim will put it in his report as well. So that'll be that. And then I'll also have the original county thing on top of it too.
Yeah,
So,
and remind him if he doesn't come through to have that suggested contingency wording. you
yes,
know?
yes.
'Cause
We can get that.
He was right on the button there, and I would hate to try to recreate what
No,
he said,
we'll do
as
it.
well as he said it. Okay.
it's on, it's recorded. So
Sorry?
go back and listen to it.
Oh,
Do that too.
From here, and during a meeting, I don't know. That easy. So our second agenda is it's called Homer Development here. I just thought it had a different name.
It does.
It does, it has Brockway
Off the
Square.
Well, that's the
Square.
developer there, Homer Development LLC.
That's who the developers, okay.
Well-
Somebody here representing them?
Or there's.
That'd be me.
Sorry?
Jamie's on,
Jamie's
online.
on.
Everybody.
Hi, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah, and just to clarify that the current owner is Homer Development LLC. That's Jerry Quintano and Bruce Crandall and Vince Patriarco, but I'm the one that's developing this. So I've got this site under contract. And I'm the applicant.
Is it under Brockway or is it under?
So this particular application will be under the lofts at Brockway Square.
Okay.
Yeah. It is part of a larger development project that I'm branding Brockway Square. For those that, and I didn't know this either. In fact, the historian, Village of Homer historian, didn't even know we had to go to the Cortland Historical Society. That location, which is right behind the police station on James Street, as well as just to the right of that police station, if your back is to James Street, that right now it's being used as a copy repair place. It's been formerly used as an antique dealer. That whole site was actually the original factory of Brockway Square. So that's why we're kind of rebranding that whole parcel, Brockway Square. But the main component of this, which I trust you have all the documents in front of you. And by the way, this is really just an introduction to this project. And it's also just to confirm the interpretation of the zoning, which I feel pretty confident. I've talked to Kevin McMahon, had some conversations with Dan, but obviously this needs to go in front of you. I've also had conversations with, preliminary conversations with the county planning. And I've gotten their list of items that they need. I've got a great team I'm putting together, working right now with Don Richards, Complete Construction Concepts, and going back and forth between them and Hayner Hoyt to discern who's going to do the build out. I've got Ed Keplinger, who's doing the site plan. The site plan that you see there now is a preliminary site plan. And it's done by the architect, McKnight Architects out of Syracuse. But now I'm working on getting a much more detailed site plan to include all the required steps for getting in front of your body. So, again, what I'm here to discuss with you and just to get some feedback and questions and in particular, just to make sure that, this is that we're moving forward together on this in terms of its use. If you recall, probably most of you know, that whole area, including the police station, which is, they're obviously a good tenant, but I think it's not the best use for that building. And the police will be moving out at some point later this year, according to Hal McCabe. And then that space will open up for retail or office space. But that's a very underutilized space, and it's also part of the DRI. I have proposed for the DRI only the lofts project, which again is what I'm here to discuss with you today. That loft project, it was initially a proposed 39-unit mixed-use apartment building. I've since reduced that to 25 units from a purely economic standpoint. We just could not make the numbers work at 39 units. But with the grants, hopefully that we'll be receiving from DRI as well as Restore New York, we're working with Toma Development. The Village of Homer will be sponsoring this project to go for Restore New York money. A 25-unit mixed-use apartment building will likely work. I tried to utilize that the existing 60,000 square foot space, which is that 3-story big industrial vacant, in many areas dilapidated building. But after receiving a full cost estimate, it was just astronomical to try to renovate that building. So the plan now is to demo that building and in its place build a mixed-use 25-unit apartment building with mainly residential, but with some office space. It might be office, it might be retail, but commercial nonetheless. So again, there's lots more details to cover. In the next meeting that I have, I'll be bringing Ed Keplinger, who's the engineer, as well as our architect. But for this meeting, I just, again, wanted to get this in front of you so that we can start discussion. And more importantly, just to make sure that the mixed use component, which again, I feel confident in my interpretation of the zoning, being that the only zoning the only use of that zoning district will allow is a mixed use building. Yeah, thanks, Mike, for getting out that book. And as long as there's nothing other than residential above residential. So go ahead, Mike.
You say that again? The last?
Yeah, so the use allowance will be consistent with the zoning as long as there's nothing above the residential units that is not residential. So you can't put office space, you can't put retail above residential.
That's what it says in the code. Mixed
Yep.
use.
By the way, Dan, this is still the code?
That's still good, yes.
Okay. So, I don't know if Jamie, you want to get into this now about the zoning, to help us understand your point of view. I mean, I think it's probably the most critical thing for this, otherwise you have to get a zoning variance. It's not clear to me when I read it. So it's very clear here. It says in 228-16, it's on C, it says all residential uses are prohibited in the district unless as part of a mixed use permitted under subsection B. Well,
Right.
Subsection B to me is this paragraph right here, if I read it correctly, on 228-16B. And you try to clarify that for me. It says all uses in this district are subject to the site plan review as described in Article 7, all industrial uses, including but not limited to manufacturing, public utilities, offices, warehousing, and related heavy commercial uses, together with uses accessory thereto, are permitted if they conform to the standards of performance set out herein. That's great wording. Mixed uses, as defined in this chapter, shall also be permitted. Accessory uses shall be interpreted to mean that enterprises primarily engaged in providing related services to the basic uses and not to employees of said uses. Customary on-site employee services shall be permitted. I have no idea what that means. Do you?
My interpretation is that mixed use, residential and commercial, is permitted. But, you know, again, and I don't see it as a variance. I see it as just an interpretation of the code.
Yeah, but it needs, that's what variances or zoning board of appeals do. And it's a legal question of how to interpret that. You'll have to, it's in conflict with this other statement, all residential uses are prohibited in this district unless it's part of a mixed use permitted under section B. Well, section B is totally unclear what it means.
Right.
Be challenged. I mean, I don't understand what it means at all. And I've been in this business a long time.
Mhm.
And there's no definition for a mixed use. I mean, that's like a pie in the sky idea.
Yeah,
And so is, and by the way, I'm in favor of this project. I just want us to cover all the bases here so they don't get in trouble. The
Yep.
other thing is accessory uses. Well, you know, it's unclear what that means as well. I don't think the buildings, residential buildings would be considered accessory uses for in a industrial complex that deals with manufacturing, public utilities, offices, and all that kind of stuff.
If I interject, Mike,
Yeah,
if
sure.
you look at 2284, those are the full definitions within zoning. Got to go specifically to in the code book, page 22815.
Wait,
2284 is the section. The
yeah,
page number at the bottom is 22815. And it's mixed use, it's just the definitions and they're in
Yeah.
alphabetical order.
right, mixed use building,
Mixed use is multiple story structure in which residential, retail, and office uses are permitted to exist simultaneously on different floor levels of the structure.
right, yeah, putting all that together to say that this would work is ambiguous to me.
Well, you have to go with the definition of mixed use building. So
Well-
if the industrial site says mixed use is allowed, then what's a mixed use? You go to the definition in 224. I appreciate some of the other language in there with regards to industrial sites. But with how this is how I see the code book, is that you have to go, if a word is used, you have to go by its
Right.
definition.
Right, exactly.
And so as I see the code book,
Right.
if industrial district allows for a mixed use facility, then it's gonna allow residential.
It says mixed use facility, or what does it say about the word mixed uses as defined in this chapter? Does that mean a mixed use building? I mean, it's.
The chapter is 228, so that's the entire zoning chapter, yeah.
Right, but it doesn't say that a mixed use building does it? Is acceptable, it says mixed uses as defined in this chapter shall also be permitted. Is that referring to a mixed use building?
It ultimately it does, because the mixed use terminology refers directly to the occupancy. And therefore the occupancy in turn refers to the building. The clarification, and I spoke with Jamie at length about this, is, as he stated earlier, what we want to be careful of is that we do not put any businesses above
Yeah, we got that.
where the residential is allowed. Typical mixed use is gonna be business on the main floor. But to dive deeper into the definitions, because my first question had to do with Jamie wanting to be able to have part or the majority or half at least of the down floor, the main floor residential. When I first questioned that, and I went back into the definitions, I found out in fact that it does not have to be the entire floor for business, but there does have to be business on the main floor to be considered mixed use.
Oh, so
If
that's,
that makes
that-
sense.
right, so to have a, to make this structure meet the code of fitting, of being able to put in a mixed-use building, the mixed-use building has to have those characteristics.
Actually have those.
Has to have actually a mixed use, residential and
Exactly.
business.
Yes,
And Dan's point is that when it talks about mixed uses, it's including this mixed use building definition as part of the mixed uses.
correct.
Okay. Well, other questions in that regard, do anybody have, Mike?
No,
Yes.
so,
The, I don't know, Jamie, if you don't have any other points to make, we probably have some questions here.
So I just want to just make sure that I'm understanding you correctly, that, I mean, originally you were saying, well, you know, maybe this is a zoning thing. I didn't come into the meeting thinking that it was. I thought it would just stay within planning. Is that your interpretation of this, Mike? I mean, I'm happy to go wherever I need to go. Obviously, I gotta go to the county, but I also want to make sure that I'm not doing more than I have to, but also suffice, you know, making sure that I'm doing everything that I need to. In your interpretation, Mike, am I okay staying with this committee without going to another?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how the whole system works. I mean, Kevin would alert you to the fact that it's a zoning problem and he hasn't. So that's one way it would get before zoning. I don't think planning here has come to that conclusion. I think it could get challenged. You know, there are other people who don't want it, would say, would have to, you know, get their lawyers involved in reading out those paragraphs I read to you and say they're ambiguous and it needs to be, could be a variance. Or-
Yeah, okay.
I don't know how to, you know, you got a lawyer.
Yep.
So I don't think this committee is ready to say you have to go to zoning at this time.
Yeah, okay. Well, then that's kind of all I need. And yeah, thanks, Kevin, and thanks, Dan. But go ahead, ask any questions you'd like. I'd love to get as many as you have. Now, obviously, there's a lot of information still to come. But anything that you need to ask now, go ahead, Mike.
Thanks. This actually is, went to the county and it's gonna be reassessed, I guess, when you have more information with the county
Yep.
again. But the county brought this up, I think, in number 3, what is the mixed use according to the code for industrial districts? It can only be, and then it goes on to what I read to you, and then it stops off with, you know, thereof. So they're raising the question.
Yeah, they sent it back to you. But we've had conversations since whenever they have sent that in. I mean, I met with them probably 3 weeks ago. I'll make sure that I speak to, I think it's Gina over there, in reference to that.
Then there's some clarifications on the site plan, which I'm looking at here.
Yep.
And they referred something to this too about parcels. You know, there appear to be 5 parcels.
Yes.
I'm not sure I can identify 5 parcels on here. I see this big one here. I don't really, I don't. And you're on the Zoom there, so it's kind of hard for you to describe this, but where are these parcels?
I could probably actually pull it up. I'm not sure, how large is the screen that you're looking at when you look at me?
Pretty small.
Yeah. Well, so the 5 parcels are the industrial building, which also includes the warehouses and also the police station. I think I'll get this right. So that's 1. Number 2 is the building that old, you know, I kind of refer to it as the antique building. It's a copy repair shop. It's the one with the chain link fence out front that's got all those beat up vintage cars. That's 2. There's a lot right next door to that. That's number 3. And then there is a vacant, so there's actually land over on Elm Street. That's 4, and I know that I'm missing one here. can I ask why you're asking that, Mike? Just because you're trying to make sense of all the 5 parcels?
Whether it requires any, yeah. And this one now, that's 4, this one too, okay.
Thanks, Pat.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I didn't know if it would require any subdivisions or the way you have to treat this.
Yeah, I could speak to that some more, Mike. I mean, right now I'm talking to NBT and Tompkins, and they're our primary lenders, and I'm trying to figure out from them how they want to see this separate. For me, at some point in the very, far out future, I'll want to have the option to sell these off in pieces if I want to, rather than just sell it all in one big chunk. There's a lot going on this project, and so I'll have more information at our next meeting about what, from my perspective and from the bank's perspective and any other partners that I have on this, how they want to strategically look at subdividing any of these. Obviously, they all are going to need to coexist together, and that's really what my biggest focus is right now, because we've got, we'll have warehouse, we'll have higher end residential, we'll have commercial, and they all need to play off one another and feel like there's a good mixture of tenancy there. So yeah, I think more to come on that, but that's a great question.
So for example, the police station, the railroad station, that's not on its own parcel. So if that needed to be split off, it would need a subdivision. And then you get into setbacks and all this other stuff, so it may not be able to be subdivided.
Yep. Yeah, these are all considerations that we are, very much looking at. And I plan to have the more formal site plan this upcoming week. And at that time, we'll be speaking more strategically with Ed Keplinger about how we look at all that.
The housing project in tan here is right up against an existing building. What's C?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think one thing to clarify is that what you're looking at there, that side elevation, the rendering, that was the original proposal with the 39 units. So what I expect will happen now, and you'll see that back portion. So you see that historic looking with the cupola up on top, that will stay. The back portion will likely not, and then we'll just extend the front main structure there. And that, so to answer your question, I don't believe that it will butt up against the warehouse in the back. Again, that'll be more covered on the next meeting with the site plan. But I expect there to be quite a bit of green space behind this. So the back of the residential building will end. There'll be some nice green space for the residential tenants, and then that warehouse will begin. It might be 50 or 60 feet, but we want to have quite a bit of green space around this project. There's a lot of land, and right now it's all just beat up concrete and asphalt. So we really want to open it up visually, and have it be a really nice living space for people as well as a working space.
So if you look at the elevation, you got the pinkish structure.
Yep.
Like chimney on top, and then you got the yellow one. Is that all your new project, or is the yellow one isn't part of that existing building that's there? Is it? How do I know?
No, everything is brand new that you're seeing there.
Oh, it's brand new, okay.
Yeah.
That's the same as in the rendering. Oh, so in this case, beyond beyond, I mean, if I'm looking at the 3D one where it says WN Brockway in the front of the pinkish building, then it goes to the yellow one. Is beyond that building that warehouse building C that I talked about?
Yeah, so if you're so imagine you're standing at the perspective of where this building is. Behind you, well, kind of behind you and to the right would be the police station. To the right of that building, so the right of that building, that is facing south. Okay, so you see that, well, where the cars are, that's south of the building. And south of the building will be, what is Seven Valley Health Coalition. I'm partnering with them. And they've put together a project proposal for the DRI to occupy that single-story historic red building with a chain link fence out front as a year-round farmers market. So that would occupy what's to the right, and then behind the lofts, so behind this photo to the left, and then directly behind would be where the warehouses are.
What about existing building C? That's would be beyond this, now you're talking
Yeah,
about.
that would be behind. Yeah, I mean that would be. So again, this building runs east to west, right?
Yes,
So on the east side, which is on the far side, that's where one of the warehouses are.
Yeah.
I think that's labeled Building C. And then running north to south, on the other side of this building would be Building B.
we see that in the site plan, yes. So
Yeah.
what would be the use of those buildings, especially C, which may now have a gap between the new and the old? What
Yeah.
activities take place?
We don't have any proposed uses. It's a really nice building. In fact, it's clear span. Again, you all probably know that the whole site has been not really well taken care of, and nothing against Jerry and Vince and Bruce. I love those guys. But it just was never their plan to do much of anything here. So I anticipate, warehouse, maybe light industrial. It cannot be heavy industrial. Obviously, I grew up right in that neighborhood. So, the last thing that I would want to do is to, put anything in there that, noise pollution or air pollution but we're actually going out, starting next week, and we're going to post this as available lease space. I had actually looked at climate control self-storage, but I don't think that the numbers work on that. If all of a sudden they start to, I might just decide to go in that direction. But I'm not moving fast in that direction. I just don't see it working economically.
Did you say self-storage?
Climate control, yeah. But again,
But that just brought up the whole question of how do you get access to that space?
yeah, so there's a driveway access off of Elm. When you're looking at Building C, there's a good sized driveway access there.
Okay.
And also you could access it from James Street. That's not ideal, but you could.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So is this gonna be 25 units, or is that what you're saying? Because
Yeah,
40
25, yep.
So, and there's gonna be parking, 2 spaces for each resident, and then enough parking for all of this?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. We were able to do it with 39 units, but we started to see it was tight. Dropping it down to 25 really just allows this project to breathe in a way that I think will ultimately really serve the project. So yeah, there'll be more than enough space to park there. There's over 4 acres there, right in the heart of the village. That includes all of those 5 parcels.
And then my next question is, I was on the DRI, and I do know that there was talk about if this is gonna be, torn down, that there's a lot of toxic waste here. Who's removing that? Is the EPA involved? How is that going to be removed?
So, thank you for bringing that up. I had actually made a note to make sure that I mentioned this. A phase 1 and phase 2 environmental have been done on this, and nothing came back. And I'll be honest with you, I was surprised by that. In fact, I was hoping that something would come back. And I think any developer would, because there's a lot of tax credits available for cleaning up industrial sites like this. But there was nothing that came back. We used Forest Earl, Geologic, and one of the owners is Jerry Quintano, and he obviously does this for a living, as well as Bruce Crandall. So I am looking to them to hire them to take care of this in a responsible way.
And this won't be put on the taxpayer or anything. This is them removing it, correct? This is
Oh,
not-
yeah. No,
Okay.
there, well, to be clear, though, the only thing that I will be looking at is a pilot. But that's, a pilot program through the IDA. But that's pretty typical for projects like this. And the only thing around the taxpayer is, obviously pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes. So there might be hopefully there'll be a property tax freeze for 5 years. It's not going to be an elimination of property taxes. Right now, the whole parcel is assessed at, I think, around 300,000. So the project will continue paying taxes as if it were assessed at 300. I've already met with Brian Fitz, who's the Village of Homer assessor, and he's given me an assessment for once this whole project is up and running. And then we'll ask, I mean, this is very much outside of what this committee is, responsible for, but I want to make sure that I answer your question. So that will be one piece, but obviously we're improving the site drastically. I mean, the ultimate assessment is going to be about 6 times what it's currently set at.
And all of these pictures that I'm seeing, and I really want this project, I really do.
Yeah, thanks.
Literally telling me that none of this is toxic or
I
bad.
would be I can't see who's talking because you're off the screen, but I'd be happy to send you the environmentals.
I just,
I-
it's just
I-
shocking to me.
I'd like to see the report.
It's just shocking, that's all. I believe you. I believe what you're saying. I don't think that you're, not telling the truth. I just feel like, yeah,
A lot of
No lead
chemicals.
paint, no
Yeah.
asbestos.
no asbestos, no lead paint, no.
I'd kind of like to see the report.
So I'm just
Um,
saying.
So I'm behind the 8 ball here because I wasn't part of DRI and haven't tapped up on it, but you said this is going to be high-end apartments?
Well, there'll be market rate.
Okay,
Yeah, so
do you have any set aside for, any other kind of income, like lower income levels or any?
yeah, that's a good question. Yep.
Um,
Should be down
and
below.
apartments fully handicap accessible?
Yeah. So I did a market study. Yeah, we did the development project on South Main Street in Homer. I'm sorry, in Cortland, Crescent Commons. And we did a market study. We hired a guy out of Buffalo who's, one of the best around. And he told us what he thinks Homer needs. And I can tell you from my other focus in my career is I'm the principal broker of Yeaman Real Estate. So I recognize just how much housing is limited in our community. When I say our community, I mean Cortland County, but in particular and specifically Homer. I mean, just this week, I have an apartment available at 23 South Main Street. That was the old Ames building that burned down, and then we purchased the land and then built that new blue and gold building. I posted a $1,250 2-bedroom available, and I can't tell you how many inquiries I got, especially people that want to live in Homer, send their kids to Homer School District. Now, the other thing that Homer really needs is it needs housing that it's not affordable housing. There's basically 3 levels. There's affordable housing, which is the lowest, 60% average monthly income. Then the next level up from there is 80%, and that's workforce housing. And again, we're kind of getting off. I mean, I'm happy to answer all these questions, so hopefully this is interesting to you. It's certainly interesting to me. And then you'll have market rate housing, which is 100%. And at 100%, you're basically trying to rent these out as much as as high of a rent as you possibly can. And obviously you need, people with high paying jobs to afford it. There is a market for that. What I really wanted to do is open this up for both market rate as well as workforce housing. So, I mean, I was raised by a single mom with 3 kids on a teacher's salary in Cortland schools. My mom probably could not have afforded to live in that building if I was just going market rate. So we plan on, about half of the units to be workforce housing, which is required at 80% AMI. We're working with Homes and Community Renewal, which is a nonprofit organization, and they're supporting this project from a subsidy perspective. But to do that, we are required to have a certain amount of units at 80% AMI. But again, to be very clear, this is not affordable housing. Affordable housing has a whole different, layout, and that's just not something that I felt I really wanted to work in. That's not my niche. My niche is, higher end housing, but also I recognize what Homer needs, which is both higher end housing as well as workforce housing.
Jamie, what's the two bedrooms, one bedrooms mix?
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting combination, and when I say interesting, it's really driven by Homes and Community Renewal and what they say is needed. So there's going to be, I think it's three bedrooms, and then it's divided evenly between ones and twos after that.
See a problem with fire getting in there?
It's all fully sprinkled.
Hmm?
It would be fully sprinkled.
Yeah, no, but you still need to get equipment in.
Yep.
And I don't know.
That's a great question, Mike, and I'll absolutely look for your feedback on that once I am bringing you a more formal site plan.
Bruce is a fireman. He just make sure we got access to get in and out of that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jamie, if I can address before we get too far ahead, the toxicity issue that's bothering some folks. I know that when what I refer to them as the Three Musketeers, but when those guys purchased the property, they didn't do it without a clean bill of health. Not to say that the buildings themselves may or may not contain asbestos and lead and those sorts of things, which is handled in the building process.
Right.
But the site itself is a clean site. So.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, that makes a lot more sense. So, okay,
Yeah.
because I'm sitting here thinking there's no way.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, two different things.
yeah, okay.
Thanks for the
No
clarification.
problem.
That was confusing the heck out of me.
Right,
But again, if there's asbestos, if there's lead paint, all of those things are gonna have to be handled.
that
and-
gets,
So they have to be
Okay.
remediated. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
legal
that gets
issue.
handled during the building and or
That's what Crandall does.
Yeah.
the demolition process. So, yeah.
So Jamie, were any of those apartments handicap accessible?
Well, they're all ADA compliant.
Okay.
Let me actually let me back that up. I know that all the ones in Homer were ADA compliant. If you look at the plans, when I say in Homer, the most recent one that I did in Homer, which is on Main Street. If you look at the plans, you'll notice that there are turn radiuses in the bathroom. And I believe that's for all of them. So, in theory, someone with a wheelchair can move around there. We had a woman that I did a project in the city of Cortland when city of Cortland won the DRI, and it was the largest development project that Cortland had. It was a full renovation, 20,000 square feet. It's where the Chamber of Commerce is now. And at the time that we were developing it, we were also renting the units out. There was someone that was in a wheelchair, and we modified her apartment during the build out process to make sure that she could wheel in and out of showers. And so we very much are in favor of that. And also all of these units can be adapted if they have to.
Jamie, if I can add to that, to answer the question, state building code, because I've got another project in another one of my towns. State building code, when you do multi-family residential, dictates that we have to have a minimum of one fully ADA accessible unit per 25 units.
Okay.
But every unit has to be ADA compliant, like Jamie said, so that they can be converted. Basically, that's all that does. So, okay. But again, that's a building code that you have to comply with.
Well, does anybody else have any questions for Jamie? Jamie, do you have any questions for us?
No, I don't. I mean, this has been really great. I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate the support, and I also recognize that you all have crucial job to do, and I'm looking forward to working with you to make sure that all of your answers or questions are answered and your needs are met, and we'll look forward to our next call.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jamie. I do, I remember, I think, having, talked about this. And you feel comfortable that the mix between the other, buildings that are there, not the ones in the front, of course, I guess it would be C, B, and, the other ones are a good mix with this residential units stuck in the middle.
Did you guys hear me?